Hi, I'm Shane Hurlbut. I'm an ASC cinematographer, and I wanted to kind of talk to you about something. Getting started in this industry is almost impossible. And my wife Lydia and I, 14 years ago, created a resource called Filmmakers Academy to make it possible. We saw a lot of gatekeeping in this industry and not a lot of sharing knowledge. So we wanted to pull back the curtain, give you confidence, teach you all the necessary skills to be an amazing, successful filmmaker, and package it all on this online resource that you have at your fingertips, on set, on your phone, on your laptop, whatever it is. So we're going to give you $50. So if you go into the show notes, click the link, and hit the promo code FAPOD50, you're going to get $50 on your first year of an all-access membership. And I cannot wait for you to join our immense and immersive community at Filmmakers Academy, where we network, we share knowledge, we just bond as this huge filmmaking resource to ignite your creativity and push you beyond your boundaries. I cannot wait to see you in the Academy, and let's get to the podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Inner Circle Podcast. I'm Shane Hurlbut.
And I'm Lydia Hurlbut, and we have a very special guest with us
Very
today. Shane and I are so excited to welcome Kira Grace Hurlbut, who happens to be our daughter, but also an actor and a social media expert. Kira has really taken a deep dive into social media over the last 3 years to supplement acting, and she co-founded a company called Lost Objects with Brendan Sweeney. And we are going to tackle all questions marketing today. So, how do you market yourself as a filmmaker? What mistakes do filmmakers make by not putting themselves out there enough? How do you leverage social media to your advantage? What other platforms do you need to learn and to take advantage of? And what is the type of content that you want to be putting on all of these platforms? Because we know to be true, when you're behind the camera, you don't tend to like to be so much in front of it, but you need to market yourself. So let's dive in.
Kira, welcome to the Inner Circle Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is awesome and super fun to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to see you.
Yeah.
Yay. We love you so much, Kira, and we're so proud, we have to say, before we get into question number one, to be the parents to you and Miles. We love you so much.
Aw,
Yes.
Well, you guys are awesome parents, so thank you.
Okay, diving into question number one, let's look at marketing. And what do filmmakers need to know? And even before we get into that, actually, I want to back up a little bit and talk about, how did you even get into this in the first place?
Well, that's a very funny story. It's because of you guys. So it was during the pandemic in 2020. I had just graduated college, and then immediately a few weeks later the pandemic hit. And it was something where I was like, what am I going to do? Because the job that I had previously had was in person, and now everything was shut down. And I was like, okay, I'll just get a job at Starbucks or something. So I started working there, and it was awful. I couldn't stand it. And I was like, this is definitely not what I'm meant to be doing. And you guys had just had one of your employees who was managing your social media, the back then Hurlbut Academy social media, leave. And you guys were like, please, can you help us out? And I was like, no, I don't want to work for my parents. And then you were like, no, please. I'm like, no, I'm going to make it on my own at Starbucks. I'll be fine. And then next thing you know, you just kept asking. And I was like, yeah, this job really sucks. Let's do it. And then from there, it's been now 4 years, and it's been really a lot of fun. I've learned so much. And yeah, you guys are the reason that I'm not only just sitting here, but actually, doing this job. So,
well, and we think that you're doing a phenomenal job with it. So let's dive into kind of all of the details around that. So as an artist, why does social media matter? What do filmmakers need to know? Let's go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really hard is social media has kind of become like a negative connotation, I think, for some filmmakers. Either they think, oh, I don't need to do it because it's not important for me, or like I work so much that like, or, something's an industry standard, or I'm just very well known. So I just work all the time that I don't need to show that. So that's something that I would say is like a big, like just missed opportunity for a lot of filmmakers. And I also think, like you said earlier, it's very uncomfortable in terms of like if you're behind the camera putting yourselves in front of it, or if you're working on set and people are looking at your social media and like you're posting, they might be like, oh, like, oh wow, so and so's like posting a lot, like you're doing this now, you're doing that. So I feel like those are the instances that people kind of are afraid to dive into it, or they are like, I don't know what to do, right? Or like, how do I even start? So I would say those are kind of like the big misconceptions and like what's the word, like being hesitant towards just diving into something. But it is super important in today's day to have a presence on social media. I mean, as filmmakers, you are your own employee, like not employee, but you know what I mean? Like you are your own, like your business owner, you're an entrepreneur, even though you're employed by other people, we're all freelance. So it's like, you have to, if you are a graphic designer, you ask to see a bunch of their designs or samples, right? It's like, that's the same thing with showing a reel or showing different things like that. So it's your Instagram, people nowadays don't even really go to websites as much. They'll just look somebody up on Instagram. And if they don't see something that's like aesthetically pleasing or has a lot of information or doesn't even have an account, like especially this next generation, it'll be like, what's happening, or like, yeah.
That's so interesting. So let's take Instagram, because I think every filmmaker loves Instagram, is on Instagram, in addition to other things like YouTube and obviously LinkedIn and Facebook, not so much. But how do you view Instagram as a leverage tool to promote yourself, to get yourself out there? And what is your recommendation in terms of what people can be doing on Instagram?
Absolutely. I think the reason Instagram is like an easy yes for so many people, especially filmmakers, is it's a very visual platform. And that's kind of how it started. Whereas like, Facebook, you couldn't see everything on a grid. You would just have to like scroll. So Instagram, you immediately see it in like a wide view, right? Of like, oh, wow, I can see all these people things and then I can dive into it. So what I think that's why when we first saw like the old grids, like back then, would be people would post like, 3 different things to like fill the grid of like a wide shot or things like that. And they were really taking advantage of that. But what I would say is for a filmmaker, the most important thing for Instagram is to use your name, your actual name.
Yes.
Because if you try to look somebody up and it's like not their name or some 226 or something like that, I'm telling you, that is like, that makes it so hard, because how many like Bob Welches are there out there? Like, you know what I mean? How many so-and-sos? It's like, there's so many people and their names, and so it's like, instead of having it be numbers or something that's very hard to recognize, if you don't have a unique name, I would say either put your middle name or put like a dot or an underscore or something very, just so people could just get your name. So be easily searchable, 1. 2, be very clear in what you do. I would say have a business account. You could make your Instagram account a business account so that you could have those, like, I don't know exactly what they're called. They're like job, like, stamps or whatever. That's probably not the right term, but you know how it's like film director or artist or actor. You could have that. So that like immediately tags you and people could see that. On top of that, you have insights to like see, oh wow, this many people liked it, this many people shared my post, oh wow, people saw this post and then clicked directly to my website. You get all of those analytics by having a business account, and it's free. I would also say making your bio as like specific as possible, right? Really using it, because a lot of filmmakers that I see, they don't really take advantage of their bio. It's just like, local 600 something, like it's very bland, like, but
I see that on all of IMDb.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like technicians and everyone, they need to put a a photo in
Yeah.
there, fill it out, because a lot of times I go down there and I might have forgotten the name of the person, but if I see his face, I know I'm going to remember, oh, I work with that person. Oh, cool. I'll be able to reach out to him. So I think there's a lot of stuff that is low-hanging fruit
Yep.
that no one does when it's all there and you can easily change it.
Exactly. And
keep it current.
And keep it current. In the bio, they limit you. There's only a certain amount of characters, but it's about getting creative, using tools like ChatGPT, where you type, hey, if I only have 150 characters, how do I fit in that I'm a cinematographer? I also own an owner operator, this, and this, and this. And then it would literally be able to list that out for you. It's always super important to put where you're based in your bio, because a lot of us travel. You could be tagging Los Angeles, then you could be tagging San Francisco, then Manhattan. There's so many different, and if people don't know you, they'll be like, where do they live? And it's kind of awkward if you're thinking about considering somebody for a job, having to reach out to someone maybe you don't even know and being like, hey, are you based in LA? Oh, no, I was just there for a job. It's have that in your bio, Los Angeles, or wherever you're based. And then have a website, links, definitely use links. What I would recommend is actually having a link tree. A link tree is free. You literally, you could pay and get more advanced features, but it's free. And that allows you to put your website, your reel, everything in one click, and you can design it to be whatever colors you want, and you can title it a specific way, and you get analytics on that where it's 150 people clicked this, and you're like, wow, a lot of people were driven to my site or driven to these other places. So yeah, in summary, I would say to just get started, really make sure you're searchable, make sure you have a solid bio, that it's where you're based. Also, having a link tree to just have all of your work and everything people need to know in one spot, so they're not having to go to a million different others. And then, of course, we'll get into, which I'm sure this is we'll dive into this, but consistency, and then having solid content and good looking images, because the worst thing that could happen is if you're a cinematographer and a lot of your photos are something that just doesn't look great, it's people will be like, should I hire this person? I'm kind of concerned, so.
Yes. And one thing back to linking, I think interlinking is so important. So for example, I have seen on the bio a link that is to a website, for example, to your work website. And so I think it's getting really creative in terms of interlinking. So if somebody's on the page or somebody is somewhere within your social media, where else can you take them to find out more about you so that they can then go down this rabbit hole, just to make it easy as possible? Because directors, producers, all these people, they don't have time, right?
Mm-mm.
So the more obvious and the more succinct and the more easy you, the filmmaker, can make it for the person.
Mm-hmm.
So in that vein,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk hashtags. Let's talk.
I was just thinking the same thing. We're on the same.
Yeah, what is going on with hashtags? I see people that put 90 hashtags after all this. Who has the time, and does it even matter?
Well, Shane, you actually can't put 90 hashtags. There's a 30 hashtag
All
limit,
right.
but
Well, I always over-exaggerate.
no, I
by
know.
3.
I should know by now. So
Yeah.
that was that was. So what I would say when we get into hashtags and everything, yes. So hashtags are super important. If anyone listening to this and watching this, go to Filmmakers Academy's Instagram and literally steal the hashtags if you're a filmmaker, because I've done so much research and have aggregated all of these hashtags. It's cinematography, cinematographer, director of photography, DOP life, filmmaking, filmmaker, filmmakers of Instagram, behind the scenes, lighting breakdown, literally all of these. And what it does is it filters, because think about how many millions and millions and millions of posts there are every single day. That's tagging something. So it's how you would tag a specific, clip for an edit, or you would tag something. That is what it does. And so if people follow the hashtag, which you can follow hashtags, this will come up in your feed and you could be exposed to new people who've never followed you.
Gotcha.
Or have never seen your stuff. So
and that's why it comes up with follow.
Mhm.
That's not necessarily there.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
that's a newer feature they rolled out where it's like putting people you don't follow into the,
Yeah, I
because
like that.
no, me too, because a lot of people I'm like, oh wow, this is this person I didn't even know. Like, let me, that I've
Mhm.
seen on a show or that I really like their stuff. You follow. But in terms of the hashtag following, that's definitely like a very niche thing. And if you were a filmmaker, you want to just see very specific, of course people tag stuff that has nothing. That's where it gets annoying is people will hashtag things that have absolutely nothing to do with the,
Content,
post.
yeah.
So you might get an occasional like, okay, what is that? But for the most part, if you follow it, you could look at all the images. So hashtagging is very important in the videos and everything. Also having a consistency like in your posting really helps with like the algorithm. So again, I always recommend the minimum to do is 3 posts a week. That's honestly, and I know everyone's probably like, oh God, how do I do it? So much work. There's numerous ways, but a lot of the times I say, guys, make your own content. And that sounds like, oh, that's so much work, all of these things. But the truth is, it really isn't. You could do it so like easily. And especially, I don't know, I just think for filmmaking, there's kind of 3 different hubs that I've realized. It's like one hub is DPs or, people on set, filmmakers that just really post everything is about their projects and like stills. It looks as if it's like shot deck, right? It's just beautiful imagery all over the
Mhm.
page. And that's kind of all that you get, right? Maybe no personal touch. It's just more of a portfolio. Then another one is like a mix of that, but also educational. So maybe the cinematographer, like Shane, for example, on yours, you broke down a lot of your wide shots where you physically draw arrows or like overlay arrows onto an image and type this was an 18K here going through this diffused with this, and you give the information and everyone's like, oh wow. And you'll notice on the analytics that gets saved a lot and sent because people are like, look at this is how they did this shot, right? And that's giving back and like having people understand how you did something. And then the final one is just really having it be a lot more educational. You could have like some of your work, but it could be videos, reels, things of yourself being like, hey, everyone, I'm a camera operator. This is how I ensure that the cart is like that I have is deployed correctly, or this is how I ensure that I carry lenses or, whatever, right? Those are bad examples, but that's what I mean is like it really breaks it down. So that's what I've seen. And honestly, a lot of filmmakers own their own equipment, just literally rig it and start going and being like, hey, everyone, this is what I'm doing today. I'll just show you how I clean this camera. This is super important. Never do this. Always ensure to do this. Da 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 da. Done. It could be 90 seconds. It could be more. And then people are like, oh, wow. And then next thing you know, the conversation starts. So anyway, it's like either going out there, making your own content, taking stills from your work, showing behind the scenes photos or showing photos of yourself working on set. That's so important.
So I know everybody's eyes are going, oh man, it's like one more thing on the to-do list.
Mhm.
How am I going to do this on set? Am I asking my friends to sit there in the camera department or whatever and take stills of me as we're working and when we have a second at lunch? How do you make people get excited about doing this? Why does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, it feels super weird, right? It's like, but I tell every single filmmaker, you need to view every job as like you're marketing yourself because 9 times out of 10, you don't know where the next job is coming from unless you are making it yourself or, you're so in demand that you were booked the rest of the year, right? But that's not every filmmaker. So what I would always say is like, it's just so important to be finding those opportunities. And it might feel weird, it might feel awkward, but just do it because, and especially if you're working on a project, it's about banking content for when it comes out. Because of course you can't post if there's the set in the background or very obvious things, if it's a big show or if it's something new coming out. So what you do is you find those moments where maybe it's second team standing in, there's none of the actors there. You're just, at your monitor waiting to like have the actors come to do a rehearsal to pull focus. Take a photo or do something of it. It's like, or you and like, your monitor, and it might seem weird and you might be like, what the heck am I doing? But it's like, I'm telling you, when that show comes out and you post that, everyone's gonna be like, oh, you worked on that. Wow, look, I loved that scene from that location that you were in. It's like, that's all that it's about. So even though it feels weird, just push through the awkward and be smart about it, because the worst thing you can do is like hold something up or like really not do something like smart. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, who took a photo? Or why are you taking a photo? Or, and you can get in huge trouble.
Well,
Yeah, I
and
mean, sorry to interrupt, but I mean, on my call sheet every morning is you cannot use cell phones, you cannot do anything, you
Mhm.
cannot shoot any stuff on BTS or any of that stuff.
Mhm.
So why would I be going against production when they're stating all this and trying to get stuff? Well, what I've done in the past is say I have Filmmakers Academy, and I am getting a lot of this gear that is sponsored that I'm able to bring to the production to save money. Is it possible for me to blast off some stuff that is not going to see actors or have any set?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that's no problem. But you definitely want to ask. You do not want to be found out with this camera around, because even though you see it very frequently on set, even though it is on every call sheet, it's our job to do. I need to have my phone. I have my Artemis app. I'm always being asked by Roberto, when's the rain coming? I have my very detailed weather apps. I know where the sun is going to be positioning. So the phone is a very important tool. But we definitely have to find that balance, because, production very wisely wants to limit it, because we've seen stuff come out of the bag prior to release and it's ugly.
No, it really is.
I've seen they tell the people have shot the end of movies sometimes, and it's like a huge spoiler alert. So I can see the reason. I know that James Cameron, if you're found with a phone, he nails it to the wall. There's different ways that directors have dealt with this. Tarantino takes all the phones.
Yeah.
When you come in, you have to check them at the door, and then you're able to get them when you leave.
Oh yeah. So these are great points. And that's the whole thing, is it's about reading the room. So obviously if you're going up the ranks and you're not someone like yourself who can ask production and say you have filmmakers, it's like, yes, be smart. Like if there's something that says no photos, no anything, like then very wisely don't take any photos. But like you said, there's strategic ways to do it. So obviously if your phone is taken, like if you're working with directors, it's like no phone policy, then yeah, sorry about that. You can't really, take anything. But in terms of if you do have your phone, there's no reason that like when you have a call or like a pre-call for something and you're all there with the other, team members and the crew, and you guys are just like working on a light that has absolutely no connotation that it's on this set, take all those. Like if it's your, cart, take that. If it's you taking a selfie with your equipment or the production's equipment without any sets, actors, anything that gives anything away, do it, right? It's like those are where you have to be very strategic, because yes, I would not want anyone to like get fired or never get hired again for something. No, it's just about being very smart. So take the moments before you really get into it. If it's a set that's a little more like relaxed, like of course, some sets aren't, but if you're working on a commercial or reality or something that's a little, maybe a music video, unless it's, embargoed or has a huge like NDA or whatever, then it's like, go for it, especially if it's non-union and it's not, a huge, like, some non-union projects are a really big deal, NDAs, but other ones are a lot more lenient. If it's an indie rock band that doesn't care and they actually are happy for the promotion, like then you can get a lot of stuff, right? But it's like about before, and then when you wrap too, that's an amazing opportunity. When you're putting things away, you could do a time lapse in the truck. You could rig your phone, have a time lapse, everyone coming on. And then of course you could post that either, during the week or whatever, or you could post it when the project comes out and be like, this is what the amount of equipment we were dealing with on XXX by, whatever. And then, yeah. So anyway, that's what I would say.
So what do you do if you don't let's say that you're just starting out or you don't have a lot of assets or you are on a job where you absolutely cannot do anything.
Mhm.
And let's say that this project lasts 6 months.
Mhm.
Okay, so you have all of a sudden a hole in your social media. So what do you do in that situation to kind of keep consistency, try to keep things moving forward and just not have these big gaps?
Yeah, I would say, and do they not have any previous, like, projects you're saying? Like, if they're
Right. Let's just
so
say.
you can't take any stills? I would say the biggest thing is don't put out content just to put out content, because you can kind of tell when somebody's posting something
Mhm.
just to post and it doesn't have any significance, it doesn't showcase anything of their work, and it's really just not that important or, like, a good representation of themselves. So definitely curate your social media. If you know a project is coming, if you are just starting out, I would say any opportunity you have on the weekends in your free time is definitely just creating stuff. If that's you taking a camera and shooting a bunch of like nature photography or doing something else to just showcase and you feel proud, like this is an excellent representation of what I can do. Or if it's, filming a video of yourself with your own equipment, doing something educational or something like that. Or if it's like creating, I don't know, I love doing this. I love doing like infographic posts, which is where it's like a carousel of like beautiful imagery, but there's text on it. It's like, what if you it's stills that you shot, and then each one you maybe like wrote something about how you captured the shot or you drew on it and made it interactive. Because the truth is the education makes it more interactive instead of just being, oh,
Mhm.
that's a pretty post, like, or comment. If it's, this is how I achieved this, I did this, this, and this, people are like, holy crap, that you use this to get that? I've used that before. How did you get that? It's like it really sparks the conversation. So anyway, what I would say is anyone starting out who really wants to just have the consistency, level up your social media, you just have to like make the time for it, because I will always say it is investment in yourself and your career. Just like as an actor, getting new headshots, that is an investment in your career. Getting a new reel, that is an investment. Getting new equipment, that is investment. You have to view it as that important, or else it will just sit there, because nowadays people are being hired off of Instagram. I know so many cinematographers who've been hired
Wow.
directly from Instagram. People will type,
Mhm.
a certain location and cinematographer, and then people's handles will come up. They'll look at their work, they'll DM them, bam. So it's like, really, you have to look at it as important as your reel and your website, in my opinion.
So one question while we're on this in terms of metrics that you're looking at. So let's say, okay, I've spent a whole weekend, I've invested all this time in doing all of this for my social media. I put it on Instagram and maybe linked it to a couple of other areas. Maybe I put stills on my website. In
Mhm.
other words, with the imagery, I imagine that you want to get it as many places as you can, but stay true to where you are. So, like, what you would post on Instagram would be different than maybe what you would be posting on LinkedIn, or each channel has its own way of rolling out. So you can't just say, okay, here are my images and I'm just going to post across channels, because the ROI that you're getting for that is not so great and it would impact the metrics, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say some content is like multi-purposeful, which is really exciting. So, like for example, Instagram, I would post it also on Threads. I would post it on Facebook. I would post it on, like LinkedIn if it's a beautiful image that you really feel confident about, and a lot of people follow you, or you're trying to build your network or whatever. I would say, obviously, for TikTok, which is only a video based platform, they have TikTok stories, but I personally do not, watch those. Some people might, so correct me if I'm wrong, or there's maybe a huge demographic that does. But to my knowledge, it's like that's the only other way you'd be able to post an image on TikTok. So then that's where it gets into like you have to optimize for each platform. But I would say for filmmakers, the most important thing, and Brendan always says this as well, is you need to focus on one or two platforms and really hone in on that. Have that be your strategy and your focus before you just split yourself between 7 platforms, because it dilutes so much because you can't take your content across unless it's video. Maybe that's a lot more, but maybe it's different aspect ratios, or maybe it's different lengths of the video. Like YouTube Shorts is only 60 seconds. So if you shoot something that's an amazing video that's like 2 minutes, you either have to take a 60-second clip or you can't do it. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of these different things. So I would say for filmmakers, focus on Instagram. And then this other one, hear me out, but I really think TikTok is a fascinating space for filmmakers.
I agree.
That's something that I truthfully, during the pandemic I'm sure where everyone got obsessed with it, but also I fell into that rabbit hole. I always swore, I was like, guys, my roommate, Soyana, I love her, but she was obsessed with it. And she still is. She spends like 4 hours a day just going on TikTok, and she learns everything from it. Like she'll teach me like hacks, and she's like, oh yeah, just do this. And I'm like, what the hell? And she's like, I learned it on TikTok. And I'm like, what? Like it literally is like a new Google, which is very scary.
It's very scary. I mean, I was like, I was noticing that, we buy all these vegetables and they all go bad so quickly. And I saw a hack on TikTok that was basically take asparagus, put it in water, like a thing like that, shove it in the refrigerator, and the thing lasts for 3 weeks. And sure enough, it does. And they say you do the same thing with lemons. You put them in water. They last a lot longer in the refrigerator. There's all these little hacksy and recipes. Oh my God. I see the recipes and everything. I finally had to delete TikTok because I was in full addiction mode.
I know.
And Lydia was calling me out on it. And I'm like, I'm done with TikTok.
What's so funny is Shane created a TikTok that no one knew. So no one knew, like, except for me, because one day I saw Shane Hurlbut something liked, like the Filmmakers Academies. Yeah. And I was like, what the hell? And then I clicked it, no profile image, no anything. I'm like, that's him. I'm like, he's on it. He did something. He created a profile. So anyway, you were like lurking for sure, but it's definitely.
I was a lurker.
You were a lurker, but it's one of those things where, yeah, it's, it's a fascinating space. It's so like, if you're looking for very entertaining, quick tips, it's like an educational hub. And it's really, there's also hilarious videos that people.
Oh yeah. I like all the fails and all.
Oh yeah. Like people so falling good. Or like something, or like they cut together ridiculous things. It's like, it's hilarious and it's very educational.
So how do you leverage it to get ROI from it? Because I think one of the biggest, I'm not a fan of social media, and everybody knows this.
You're not a
me.
TikToker?
I'm not a TikToker. Because I feel like there is so much negative that
we'll get into that because
that comes out of social media.
Yeah.
And I would much prefer to spend my time in other places in terms of researching and shooting and writing and doing all this stuff. But I know it's really important. So how do you leverage, with the small amount of time that we all have, let's say the two most important platforms? We talked a lot about Instagram, but for TikTok very specifically.
Yeah, I would say, TikTok is its own beast. Do it if you want. I just think it's an opportunity because the filmmaking space and like filmmakers are really just getting on to, I mean, there's a handful now, but it's still kind of early in my opinion to a degree. And also a lot of people have made careers out of it already because like they start to blow up and like next thing you know, they're getting brand deals or gear shipped to them or all of these things because they're so successful. I mean, I had no idea the Lighting Night Interiors was going to be what it was. And then we posted that clip, which wasn't even sized 9x16. It was 16x9 because I was like, I'm not going to go through all the work of correctly cutting this aspect ratio. I want to just see what happens because we were testing if this was worth my time at Filmmakers Academy to go into TikTok. We posted that 3.2 million views. So it just goes to show you people are interested. So on TikTok, I don't think you'll get a lot of like paying, for example, for Filmmakers Academy. I don't think we're converting members by going TikTok. I don't think, if you're a filmmaker, you're going to be getting jobs. You might from TikTok, but it's more brand awareness. That's the biggest thing. So it's more people seeing things like average people that they would never see. Like imagine people in Kansas that are just scrolling on TikTok and then they see you on a set doing something on a show that they are obsessed with. They'd be like, oh my goodness. It's like, that's the kind of like feeling from it. So what I would say is don't look like, obviously when you hit a certain amount of followers, you could put your link tree or your website into the bio. You could always tell people, follow me on Instagram, or, go to my website for more information. Like, of course, you could always be pointing to people to places, but I would say it's more for like you yourself to leverage. Like if you want a specific piece of equipment or a brand deal as a filmmaker, you could be like, hey, look what I just did. I got this many views, this many likes. Could you send me this piece of equipment? I'll do a breakdown on it. And then, you're getting free gear, you're getting awareness, and maybe you're becoming an ambassador for a certain company and you're getting paid. It's like an alternative revenue stream.
So it's kind of what I'm hearing you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but a combo platter for awareness, right? It's an awareness driver, which is very important for people.
Yeah.
But it's also used for specificity.
And yes, and for marketing, like for example, what I've seen filmmakers do is marketing their own projects. That's huge. Like you could be like, and if it's your own project, you can show however much of it you want because you own it. Yeah. So you could literally be like, hey everyone, I just made this short film. Please go watch it. I'll just, that, or you could literally show stills and be like, yeah, this was like impossible to make. I'll tell you how I got the funding and what I did. This is the project, and then you dive into that. But it's really good for marketing yourself and your projects, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. So as a mother, I am so grateful that social media was not a thing when you and Miles were little, or until you became of an older age, because
where your brain could handle it.
I think that there are so many negatives about social media.
Yeah.
And I think that it is isolating.
There's a disturbing documentary on Netflix that really, I watched that and I was like, wow, this is not good.
Well, especially with body image issues, with younger children who really become addicted and obsessed. Mm-hmm. And it's also just the screen time where you just keep. They design it to be addictive.
No, they do. And yes, and to just really quickly speak to that and then to go into like the negative things that we talked about a little bit earlier. It is unfortunate. I think the reason social media for me, I know all of these things, and I think believe me, it's awful with bullying, with body image issues, with unrealistic expectations, like it, especially in cities like Los Angeles, New York, where things are so materialistic, or someone's like, I made $150,000 in a month, learn how. It's like that type of thing where it's like people are always just looking for quick fixes, or like, girls are having really bad issues or like eating disorders because they're like, how are these girls so like this? I'm ugly. Like, of course, there's all of those things. What I would say is like, I don't look at it like, for me, myself, I'm like, okay, it's like, you got to do it to like be out there to be, but you do it by your own terms, and you also, it's your marketing material and your outlet, right? So that's how the reason I get excited by it is not because I actually don't look at like how I keep myself mentally sane. I'm not on Instagram or like, no, I myself am on it, like it counts, but my time, I'm not on it. I only am on it to post things and that's it, or to quickly scroll if I'm a little bored, or if I have time, I'll do that. But other than that, I'm not on it that often. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, I just look at it as, how can I make this platform? Like, how can I work it to my advantage? And then that helps me not get into all of those. Because believe me, if you scroll on too long and you see all of these things, it can really mess with you, like mentally.
No, I mean, I think about this. It's like you and I grew up in a very small town in upstate New York. We didn't know what Joe Johnson was doing in Los Angeles, or Nikki Haley in Dallas, or we didn't know. No. So, and you didn't judge your life. You thought, I had a good family life. I grew up in this house. My parents took care of me. It was great. I loved it. But when you start to see all these posts that are showing these amazing homes and these
Oh, yeah.
cars that you got at 16 years old and all this. It distorts the mind. I thought I had the greatest childhood in the world, and I didn't have shit.
I know.
And now I'm looking at, I can only imagine what my kids, if I was in that environment and they would look at this and they're like, my God, you guys aren't doing anything well.
And
You're losers.
And from a mental health perspective, I think my biggest issue, and this is where I really worry for filmmakers, for everybody, comparison robs joy.
Yes.
Comparison constantly robs joy. And so
if you don't know what you're missing, you don't know what you're missing.
Ignorance is bliss to a degree.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to live in a hole, but at the same time, I don't want to, I
constantly have thrown in front of you what jobs you're not getting, how you're not on that series, how you're not on that TV show, how you're not on that commercial, how you're not. So I guess, Kira,
those bastards, why are they doing all this work and what am I up to right now?
That's what everybody's thinking.
Believe
the more
me.
time that you spend on it.
Yeah. And as an actor, I'll see something of like, so-and-so booked this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what do you mean? Like they booked that? Like they're not talented, or I went to school with them. They have no work ethic, or you start to get into this whole thing. But again, use it to your advantage. You need to engage to a degree, or else your account could seem like it's not active. Like, so that's why you post, scroll through, but also this is what I will say, be very mindful of who you follow, because a lot of that is in your control. Of course, Instagram puts up these new people, right? With this new feature that they randomly throw people that you don't follow. Or sometimes, I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, they will randomly follow accounts that you did not follow. That has happened to me so many times. I scroll and I'm like, I never followed this person. I click it, don't even know who they are. And I'm like, unfollow. So anyway, be very mindful of who you follow. Or you guys, there's beautiful functions. You can mute people. I don't think people know that.
I don't know.
Yeah, you can mute people. Some of the people that I can't, like, you need to politically be cool with them, but you're like, God, I hate these fucking people. Sorry, excuse my language. You literally would go and you would like go click the top 3, things on your.
She's my daughter.
No, it's not. It's not good. We swear way too much. But you click the top 3, little things in the top, and you can literally mute people so that you will never see their posts, you'll never see their stories, but you're following them. So it won't start like a weird thing of, oh, you don't follow me, or no. So you can do that. Like literally, if there's somebody who you always know affects your mental health, but you have to follow them because they're your coworker or whatever, just do that. And it'll help your peace of mind so much.
So I love this, Kira, because I think it's really, and what I'm hearing you say in this beautiful way is that leverage the channels to your advantage, follow who you need to follow, but be very mindful in your time on social media in the way that you're creating assets for it. Be as smart as you possibly can to get what you need to promote yourself, so that people know your greatest skill sets, your magical talents, and what you bring to a set.
Yes.
And be very, very conscious of how much mindless scrolling you're doing, because we all have 24 hours. And in that 24 hours, how are you getting inspired? How are you also making your goals happen?
Mm-hmm.
How are you maybe reading for fun and joy? All of these other things to have continuous learning. And so with social media, it's really use it to your best advantage.
Yeah. And to basically like have it work for you. Everything to a degree is very customizable. So make it work to you. But what I will say is some people get a lot of joy from following hilarious pages, right? Or like sometimes they enjoy the doom scroll because it helps them relax. Like, so what I'll say is, again, the algorithm knows what you look at. So if you look at a lot of memes, or you have a dog and you look at a lot of dog images, it'll just keep feeding that, right? So that's the whole point, is it's like, ooh, how can we get them to be on here longer? How can we get them to do this? So what I will say is, like, again, be very mindful, but also make it work to your advantage. And there's a lot of educational accounts about mental health, about where you could learn a lot for free, or there's amazing inspirational like filmmaking accounts where you can just go on there and like maybe it's, Christopher Nolan like talking about how he did something and that's like an inspiration to you that could make your whole day, or like
Oh,
maybe
I mean, I find so many cool ideas from these scrappy filmmakers that I saw this one person mount a Insta360 onto a Swifter, right? So they anchored
a
the
Swiffer.
Swiffer.
Is that what it's called?
There's no T in Swifter. It's a Swiffer.
Okay, Swiffer. I saw it mounted on a Swiffer, and I saw them use it as this arc.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
So they saw, these arcs, and it would follow somebody and then it would dive down into the ground.
Ooh.
Yeah, and
And
that
then it
thing
would
has
come
an
back up,
extension. Yeah.
Right. Because it's on that swiveling Swiffer. Nice. So, and then she extended it, and then it started low. And then by the time she was Swiffering, the thing was like 14 feet high and it looked like a drone shot.
Mhm.
Right. So, and then you start to think about, okay, how could I do this in a way that is, some from a filmmaking device, whether it's speed rail or whatever, to make these cool transitions. And I saw another one that was very interesting. We always do these 360 dolly tracks, right? Well, they didn't want to do the dolly, so they mounted something up top and they used this arm, and then they slung down the Ronin and they just spun it around, and the thing was mounted from above. Well, that's a very cool idea.
Yeah.
You can go with wider lens. You don't see the track on the ground that you would necessarily see. So it's like, and I love it because I can save it. Then I've created my whole
Yep.
list of inspiration. I've rigs, camera. I put all these
Yep.
folders in. I got my recipes. I got the restaurants. I got my speakeasy for San Diego when we're going there for my birthday.
I love
You know,
that.
Right?
No, but
there
that's-
are very
yeah.
useful. That's how I try to
No.
use it as an artist.
resource.
Yes,
no,
it's a
I know.
resource,
It's
yeah.
and it's really, you could find a bunch of different restaurants, amazing things. And yeah, by the way, making your content bookmarkable, which is what the saving thing is, like a super like. So if somebody does that, that's like 7 people just liked your post in terms of the algorithm, in
Oh,
terms
wow.
of how
Okay.
much it'll put. So that's what I'm saying. Because a lot of filmmakers are always like, I don't want to do the whole educational. I don't want to do. It's like, no, the more you do things like that, the more your account is going to get noticed, because that's just super, super important. Also, something else I forgot to mention earlier. If you're a filmmaker and you're repped, I think it's a big, huge thing that you want to put your reps in your bio. Like if
Right.
you're commercially repped, if you're theatrically repped, that's a really important thing.
Mhm.
And also tagging their accounts in the bio, because especially if they're like a WPA or somebody that's like very well respected in the industry, that's like a huge kind of validation to anybody that's going onto your page. Like, oh, wow, well, they're local 600 and they're repped by this person. Wow. It's like immediately. So that's just something to also put. But really quickly, back to the negative thing. One thing I have to say, filmmakers are very negative on social media. They're very
Yes.
exacting. And that's something I've realized. I mean, I think everyone unfortunately kind of is, but filmmakers specifically can be trolls. And I want to call
they
all of them
throw you
out.
under the bus left and
No,
right.
I want to call all of them out, because I guarantee you some of them are listening to this podcast, and I want them to know that they need to stop, because there's no point. And I just want to say, it's like, if, you don't like a camera, but someone shot something on it, there's no reason you comment, well, that thing's a piece of shit. Why would you ever shoot it? There's no reason to do that. It's like, this person is living their life, shooting their thing. You don't need to follow them. You don't need to like it. You don't need to do anything. So I just think I want to speak to the film community in terms of like, I've never seen one that's so trolly and so like, if you accidentally say the wrong piece of equipment, God forbid, listen, I'm not into like, cinematography and all of that as much. Sorry, but that's not really I think I've learned a few things, but when I first started running the channel, I was accidentally misspelling, even though I looked things up, or I couldn't find the right thing and I couldn't get a hold of you. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll just like get this out the door. All of a sudden, trolled in the comments. They're like, why would you make this post on this background? I can't read it. It's like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry that I did that. But let's like say, hey, next time, would you mind making it on a different background? Oh my gosh, absolutely. But when you come in with that, like attacking, I have to delete so many comments. I have to block. I have to report. There's so many people that it's like, there's no reason to do that at all. And I don't think so. Anyway, I just wanted to say that because it drives me crazy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is...
Didn't my mom always say, sorry to interrupt, if you don't have anything good to say,
don't say anything.
It's like when Russ said, you want to get yourself in a better financial stuff, stop digging the hole, right?
Right. No, but I think it's really asking yourself, okay, before I write this really awful negative vitriol, why am I doing it? It's pausing and really turning, looking in the mirror and is it elevating? Is it helping? Is it producing more positivity in the world? Because you know what? The world is so negative. And I just have to say thank you, Kira, for calling people out, because it's all of our jobs to enhance and to elevate.
And I also think this comparison thing that we kind of talked about of us growing up in Ithaca, New York, and not knowing what Joe Lunchbucket was doing, in LA. It's a comparison and you're jealous of it. So you strike out.
Yeah,
right?
no.
And that's like almost a knee-jerk reaction to do those type of things. But it's not something that is what we should be doing.
No, and it's also capitalism. We always have to remember everyone's trying to sell you something. And 9 times out of 10, if you look at those people and their profiles, they're fake. You guys have to remember, and everyone needs to remember, you can build a fake reality. Sometimes, like, I've had people come up to me being like, wow, your life's so cool. Look at all of these things. And I'm like, yeah, it is really cool. But wow, that's kind of crazy because I just had like the hardest month of my life, but no one knew, right? Because on your Instagram, everything looks fine and dandy. So everyone just needs to remember that, like, even though you're seeing maybe somebody that you don't like and they got a job, or that you have no idea what they're going through. And you also have no idea they have no idea what you're going through. Or you could watch somebody who lives with their parents, and they're in their 30s or 40s, but makes their account look crazy. It looks like they're traveling because they don't have to spend money on rent. You don't know them. They could literally be like a influencer traveler, but then you go to their house or you find out their real life and you're like, what the heck? Like you're being sold something. So just know that, like, how I said, tailor your platform to you. What people have done is they've made people believe things that aren't true about their life. So just take everything with a grain of salt, because you could make it's like a magic trick. You could literally invent who you are online, and then you go to you find out everything else and it's not even anything.
And I think the authentic core value that I have for that exact reason, Kira, because authenticity is one of my absolute core values. I think not knowing, and this is such an interesting conversation that could go down a whole rabbit hole, but with AI and with all of these trends that are happening with technology in the future, it's going to be so much harder to be able to tell what is real, what is authentic.
Oh, I completely agree with that.
Where are we going with this? And it's such a slippery slope.
Oh, yeah.
Because, when we grew up, it was very easy to tell. And I think as technology continues to evolve, that is going to be our greatest challenge and our greatest question.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also something that's really like a tip that you just, sparked this in my mind of like how you tell something's real or not. Something that's really funny that I've realized, people who don't really understand social media, they'll go on somebody's account and they'll be like, wow, they have 100,000 followers. And then they never click on their actual individual posts. Some of those accounts have 20 likes per post. So you're telling me someone with 100,000 fake, so it's being really smart, because I've had like a lot of older filmmakers be like, yeah, well, he has 50K followers. We should get him on this thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, let me see. I go and then I click the post, 19 likes. I'm like, there's no way someone with 50,000 followers is getting 19 likes. There is a disparity because, like, for example, Filmmakers Academy has 2,000 followers right now. Sometimes we only get 200 likes, right? That's because maybe it's not as interesting. The algorithm isn't boosting it. It's competing, whatever it is. But that's still like 200, right? That's
Right.
something that's like, you could be like, oh, that just wasn't a successful post. But then you go to the next thing and it's 5,000 and you're like, oh, wow. So anyway, that's just something to always keep in mind is like a lot of people have fake followers, bot followers. If you click on their followers, do a scroll. Like if you're ever wanting to like potentially pay somebody or invite them onto a podcast, really do your research, because like you said, it's hard to tell what is true and what is false. And you could click on their followers. And if it's a bunch of like XX1513, no profile photo, that's a bot. So just be very careful.
So one question, are there tools or specialty things that I can use to enhance my social media?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of tools that I would say, obviously, like the great thing about filmmakers is we have everything at our disposal, right? Like you could literally, cut a reel on Premiere, right? You have the tools, you understand the knowledge, you have the equipment. So that's like something that, I feel like a lot of filmmakers are good at in terms of knowing how to do that. A quick thing that I like, that if you're trying to just do something on your phone, is CapCut is a very interesting app. It's based, I think, TikTok based, really. I think TikTok owns it. But what's really cool is you could build reels in it, and they have crazy transitions, templates, all of these things. And at the end, you can delete the CapCut watermark that they put. But what's so lovely is they don't watermark any of your video. They only at the end say created by CapCut, which you can actually delete. So normally other ones, they freaking brand it unless you like pay or something. And yeah, but anyway, you could use the music in there. You can embed it. Like that's something that I've found that's really cool. Canva is an amazing tool. A lot of the capabilities that you can get are free. CapCut's free. But Canva, I really think, honestly, like for Filmmakers Academy, just this last year, we got a premium Canva. Like I was able to operate without premium for like 3 years and make really cool stuff. So that's something that I would use, like their capabilities, and they're so easy, so intuitive. It's not as complicated as Photoshop, and it's getting very interesting with like how much you can do with it too. And they have a whole like AI lab thing where you could type something and it does it, or you could do magic expand. So if your photo's like, not a full 16:9, but you want it to fill it without cropping it, you could magic expand it. And I'm telling you, sometimes they do crazy stuff where you're like, ooh, this is still learning. But other times they'll just
They nail it.
They nail it with how they expand the image. You're like, that could have been exactly what it was. And of course, if it's your own work, you don't want anything fake in there. Always be very careful, but still, and be very, very mindful, because there's a huge thing with copyright in AI. So just be very careful, because you never know, if you accidentally use something and put it on your work and brand it as your own, it could be a huge like copyright infringement. So that's why I always say, do your research, be very careful. But if you're making something that isn't your own work, but you want to expand an image or something, I've used it on Filmmakers Academy stuff and it works really well,
And I was going to say that credit thing. I think if we go back to college, and you know how whenever you wrote a paper, you had to give proper credit. What was it called? The
Footnotes.
Footnotes and like in a research paper, but MLS. It was the MLS, footnoting format or whatever.
Oh yeah, where you have to
I
give
think
credit.
It's still that thing, because people need to be credited for their imagery, and anything that anybody uses. I know that this is a big thing for still photographers. It's a big thing for cinematographers, and it's a big thing that we're going to battle moving forward with AI, is that, you really have to credit everything that gets used.
Yeah. And it's hard, because the thing with AI is it only like certain AI, right? Because there's different types, but
yes,
certain ones, are like, they learn by what they're given. Other ones,
Yes.
it's like getting to the point where they like, that's a whole other thing. But for the basis of it, they learn what they're given. So if they just have access to all the different photos in the world, like let's say a Herb Ritz image, then they can like take from that and then use it in something that then a company puts up and makes a shit ton of money. And like Herb Ritz is like never getting money from that, even though that was taken directly from something. But anyway, so that's where it gets really tricky. So
Yes.
anyway, not to dive into that, but I would say, just the whole thing with social media, make it like use it to your advantage, really, be mindful, make the tool work for you, and like Canva, CapCut. There's just so many things these days that are just make your life so much easier. And yeah.
And I think to end, because this has been, I mean, we could go on all day on this topic, but what are the trends that you see happening, or how do people stay up to date? How do you stay up to date? Because I know for a fact, social media is constantly changing. I
Oh,
know
the
that.
whole navigation changes like every 6 months. I got to relearn where everything is. I know where my post is, and I go to hit it and where to go. Now I got to go into my profile to be able to post. It's like,
Oh yeah. And I'm sorry, I cannot stand what Instagram has been doing right now with that. They sometimes automatically switch it to something. So it's not just posts, like I'll click the plus sign and it'll automatically put me in a reel or automatically put me in a story. And I'm like, no, I want to post, or I want to
Yeah.
have a selection. And then they're also messing with story functions now where it's like the weird meta thing where I'm like now having to click these things. And yeah, it's basically what I would say is always like update your apps, because the one thing is, believe me, I hate when these new features come out, but it's like you have to keep them updated because Instagram is one of the most buggy platforms. Facebook is one of the most buggy platforms I've ever had to work with. So you have to, like, even though I know it, dang, it's an awful update, always update them. And then teach yourself, there's a lot of YouTube videos, like social media YouTubers that will be like, this is exactly why you want to use this. Or like, they're really important things. Like now there's a new update where you could A/B captions. So you could write numerous options and then the algorithm will be like, for this viewer, they would like this caption. For this one, they would like, and then it'll showcase different engagement. So it's always important. I follow personally a few like social media, like guru influencers who make their whole job is like that they just make content about social media. So that's how I stay up to date. Also, Later.com is an amazing social media management tool, but it has a free blog. And every single week, they will post, these are the top 10 trending sounds on Instagram, and they will list them out. So if you have a really amazing reel that you are like video that you are like, ooh, because a big tip always, if there's no dialogue, always use like the sound, on Instagram. This is where it gets tricky because if you have a business account, that's not a personal business account. If it's like a business account, Filmmakers Academy social media cannot use Ariana Grande's music, Taylor Swift's music, right? But my personal business page can. So that because they understand that I'm not directly profiting off of that.
Right.
It's like not anything like that. So you have to be, the reason that these trending sounds have gotten so big is people have mixed their own things with that music. And then what that is you're hearing Taylor Swift, but it's not a Taylor Swift song. And you can use that. So always use trending audio because it boosts it. And yeah, Later.com is an amazing resource to just go on to learn about things. And also following, I don't have my phone on me, but I can, link this later in like I'll link all of these in like the description of this. But there's a few other people that I could link that I think are really solid, like influencers. Like as a takeaway wrap up for filmmakers listening or watching this episode is just truthfully the importance of doing social media. I know it's hard. I know it's something that's like extra work. Again, viewing it as an investment in your career and yourself is just so important. Getting help if you need help, like hiring a social media manager or, viewing that as an investment in your career and staying up to date. And again, just having this content that either you create Or if you are shooting all the time and you're flying, why not on a plane? Can you just take screen caps of all of your, like an episode or things like that you shot or from a feature? So always, as much as you update your website, as much as you update your resume, you need to be doing that across all channels. Always focus on one or two at first. And then as you have the capabilities to expand, go for it. But really focus on, I would say 2 at most to really like trick out. Make sure everything's updated. Like I said, your bio's good, all of that stuff. Have a generic strategy and get help. That's something that I've realized is like, even my own, like if you look at my own social media, it's not consistent. It's not, and like it looks fine. It's everything I've done. But, in terms of I need a social media manager because I'm managing everyone else's. So it's like I don't have time to put into mine and do everything. So I would just say, that's why. For example, Brendan and I built Lost Objects, which is, a social media management company dedicated to like helping filmmakers, is because we saw the disconnect, and I'm really concerned about all of these companies that are like the brick and mortar, the very, industry standard. They are going to lose recognition within the next 20 years because people in this day and age, they don't go to websites, they go to Instagram. Like, people coming out of film school now who are going to be the next Tarantino, the next, Fincher, they are like, okay, this is what my teachers told us to use, but let me just, what other options are there? What are this? And of course, the ones that are putting things out that are giving to filmmakers, that are giving to like students and that really showcase themselves and really brand themselves, they're going to get the customers. So it's like, there's no excuse for some of these film companies that they can't be doing it or they shouldn't be doing it, because I'm very concerned about the future, because things won't be industry standard anymore. The more that like new technology comes out and the competition becomes even more fierce and you're not marketing yourself, that's very concerning, So anyway, that's what I would just say is like, that's why I'm very passionate about this. There's so many filmmakers who are so talented who just don't have the time or the expertise or the help to get things out the door. And I want to make sure that happens. So,
Where can you follow Lost Objects?
Oh, wow. Yes. Again, because I'm so busy with everyone else's social media, Lost Objects social media should be better. So you could follow us though on Instagram. It's at We Are Lost Objects. Our website is wearelostobjects.com. My Instagram is at Kira Grace with 2 E's at the end, because there's another Kira Grace out there who took it. So anyway, but you could still find me when you type it in, but someone stole that one. So anyway.
Well, we have loved having you on the podcast, Kira.
Thank you.
That wraps up this episode. We think you're amazing and we love you as our daughter. And we just really are so proud of everything that you have done and built. So that's it. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, Spotify, Apple, our YouTube channel, filmmakersacademy.com. And that concludes this episode. Take care, everyone.